Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, we begin Perek Tisha Asa, the 19th Perek in the Halachos of Issurei Biah, the forbidden relationships in the Sefer of Kedusha, which the Rambam continues the theme of the previous Parakam, where he's defining the unique Issurei Biah, the forbidden relationships, that as they apply to Kahanim, one of them being that of the Halala, which the Rambam is going to explain in this Perek, and then the Rambam gets into discussion regarding the Yichus of the child and the family in the larger context. Halacha after Rambam opens up defining exactly what is a chalala. As the Rambam says, Ezahi chalala, what's considered a chalala, which is a woman that's forbidden for a kohen to marry. Says the Rambam, Zu shenolda miyisur kuna. This is a woman that's born from a prohibited relationship that a kohen has. Let's say a kohen is not allowed to marry a certain woman. That daughter is a chalala. And so too, one of the women that are forbidden for kahuna, that had relations with a kohen, that nischalala, that makes her also profane, that desecrated, and that's how she could become. Oh, there's one that's is born like that, and then there's one that can become like that. That's the second type. Now, but if a kohen himself, if he violates the sin and he marries a woman he's not supposed to, that does not make him into a chalal. The woman becomes a chalala that way, but he does not become a chal that way. Now, halacha base. Now, whether this cohabitation that the kohen had with this woman was forcibly or by mistake, or ben kedarka, ben shalei kedarka, whether it was in the normal way or in the unnatural way, from the moment of genital contact, that already makes that woman into a chalala. Now, v'hu, and the criterion has to be sheyeh kohen b'tesha shouldn't be mechad b'ma'ala. The man, the kohen, has to be at least 9 years old or older. And the woman that's forbidden to him, let's say grusha, a woman that's someone that's forbidden to have a relationship with him, she has to be at least 3 years old or older, because then that will qualify for both the male and the female as an act of biah, thus having this biah surah of kahuna, which again, the child becomes a chalala, and the woman herself in this case becomes a chalala. As Rambam explains, how so? So he explains, kohen ben tesha shouldn't be mechad. You have a boy, a kohen that's at least 9 years old. Shabal agusha ela zayna, they had a relation with a woman that's a divorcee or a zayna. Or of a kohen gadol, shabal lein oy almana, or a kohen gadol that had a relation with one of these two women we described, or by him it's added on that's forbidden to him is a widow. Oy shenasa bu'ula uva leha. Or he had relations with a woman that was not a besula. He married her and he had relations with her, because if he didn't get engaged to her, she actually would not become a chalala, as Rambam explains later on, halacha dalt. So then he married her, and this bu'ula, which is a regular girl, but she was not a basula, and he married her and they had relations with her, which is forbidden to me, is to marry a basula. So all these cases, these women become forever as a chalala. Now, and if he has a child from her, a son, so, bein zeh shechilala, whether it's from this kohen who had made her into chalala, bein kohen ach, or whether from some other kohen, but be that as it may, her child is going to be havlat chal. The child, the son, is going to be a chal. Now, aval kohen shekidish isha misur kahuna, but if a kohen gets engaged to a woman that's from those that are forbidden to kahuna, v'nis almana idiskarshim ne'eris, and she's widowed or divorced from just being engaged, lo'inus chala, that does not make her into chalal. As we said, because you have to get married and have the biyah. Now, but if they get married, ava bishalei nivala, although that they didn't have biyah, interestingly, nischala, she does become a chalala. Why? Didn't we say requires two? Yes, shakol nesu, because every woman that gets married, in contrast to getting engaged, becheskas ba'ulahi, she has already presumption of already having had cohabitation, av bishanim tzvesula, although we find her out to be a besula. So again, from engagement, that will not make her into chalala, but she gets married, then you already have the criterion of getting married and having biyah, that will qualify the woman as a halal. Now, halacha dalt. Kohen gadol shenasa begeres. If a kohen gadol marries a girl over 12 and a half, approximately, a mukas 8, or she had some type of a wound in the genital area by a piece of wood, loy chilala, when he marries her, he does not make her into a halal, because after the fact, if he would marry such a woman, he would be permitted to stay with her, as the Rambam said in Perek Zayin Halacha Tezvav. V'chein baal bu'ula b'lei nisun. So too, if he had relations with a woman who is not a besula without getting married, lo chila, he does not make her into chalala, because only by getting married that he violates the v'hu isha b'besula yikach, which is about the halacha of besula is about yikach, about getting married. But if he had relations with the Ba'ula, not through marriage, so then he doesn't violate that. Therefore, that would not make this into a Isur Kahuna that the Kohen is having with her. Thus, that wouldn't make her into a Halal. Halacha hey. Kohen Abala Erva Min Arayis. If a Kohen has relations with one of the other general global Arayis, Chutz Minid, except for that of a menstruating woman, or any other negative prohibition that's equal for every single Jew as a prohibition. So Asa Isa Zaina, he makes her into a Zaina, not into a Chalala, because this is not from the Issurei Kahuna. Unlike we explained, Halacha Aleph. Now, Chazru Vala Biyashnia, but then if he goes and he has relations with her a second time, now she's already forbidden to him as Issurei Kahuna because she became a Zaina. So the Ben Hu Ben Kohen Acha, whether it's him or some other Kohen, now Nas Chalala. Now she's a Isur Kahuna of Zaina, and now if she would have relations to a Kohen, it would make her into Chalala B'Zarmim and Chalalim, and the children from her would be Chalalim too. Now, Lefikach, therefore, because the second Biah makes her into Chalalim, and now the children into Chalalim, so Kohen Shabba Zakukah Yavim, so the Kohen has relations with a woman that is waiting to have Yibum from her brother-in-law, which the Rambam couldn't find any other case that the child is going to be kosher, only the case that a Kohen has Biah with the Zakukah Yavim, because by Chiva creases, the child's a mamzer. So too, if you have relation with a mamzer, the son is a mamzer. Here, if Kohen has relations with a woman waiting for Yibum, and if she gets pregnant from the first time they have relations, so blood kosher, so the child is going to be kosher. So if Issurei Kahuna, this Isser of Yavam L'Shuk is not an Isser Kahuna, it's something that's a global Isser. So therefore, Zaina. So therefore, she would become a Zaina, as the Rambam says that Yavam Shabal Zar, and that makes her into a Zaina. Now, Chazavola Biyashniya, but if he goes and he has a relationship with her a second time, and then she becomes pregnant and gives birth, he Chalala. So this is already Isur Kahuna of Zaina, which is a unique Isur for a Kohen to marry, and not of a Yisrael. She becomes a Chalala of Vladachal, and now the child's going to be Chal, Fisher Isur Kahuna, because now the second relation was with that which is forbidden to a Kohen. Halacha Vav, V'chein Kohen Habal Gears V'Bamashachreres. So to a Kohen has relations with a female convert or a female maidservant that was freed, that Chilala, he goes and he profanes her because they have a status as a Zaina, as the Ram had previously explained. So therefore, that's the Isur Zaina, and thus making her into Chalala, because it's Isur Kuna. And Bezarim and Chalalim, and the children from her are going to be Halal. Now, Kohen Habala Nida, but Kohen's relation with a menstruating woman, Havlad Kosher ve'inachal, the child's kosher and is not a chol. She'ein Isra Nida miyuchad b'kahanim, because the Isra of a Nida is not that which is distinct just for Kahanim. Elashav b'kol, any man that's forbidden to a Nida again. So therefore, that wouldn't make her and the children into chalalim. Halacha Zayin. Kohen shenas a grusha muberes. If a Kohen marries a divorcee that's pregnant, bein memenu b'ma'acha, whether she's pregnant from him or from some other man, the yolda k'shi chalala, and she gives birth when she's already halal. I mean, she was pregnant beforehand, which was not a halala, but she was a divorcee, which should have been into Kohen. So he married her when she was pregnant. So she became a halal during pregnancy. So she's giving birth when she's already halal. Havlad kasha. The child will be kasha, although the woman is a halal, the child's not going to be. Because that child did not come from the seed of sin, because this child was already impregnated, already conceived, before the mother became a halal. Now, halacha ches Ram continues now regarding rabbinic halachas of halal. Says Ram Kvar Biyan already explained in Perek Zayin halacha Zayin, shachalutza asur l'koyim devrayim, that a chalutza is rabbinically forbidden. It's like that of a gerusha, but on a rabbinic level. It's rabbinically forbidden. Lafikach, therefore, kohen shabal chalutza, if a kohen has a relation with a chalutza, harezu chalala, so that's going to make her into chalala. V'zar kohen chalam, and the children that she has from a kohen is going to be chalam. Again, but the kohen devrayim, everything's going to be rabbinic. It's like a rabbinic gerusha, which is forbidden to a kohen. It's Issurei Kuna rabbinically, making the chalalam rabbinically. Now, but if a kohen has a relation with one of the secondary arayos, which are only rabbinic arayos, he keshera v'zar men keshem. She's kosher. The children she has from him are kosher, and the reason for that is because here, although they're both rabbinic prohibitions, but again, the shnias are a global rabbinic prohibition. It's not distinct for kahanim again, and therefore the chalalim, whether it be biblically or rabbinically, is only that which is distinctly for kahanim. Halacha test. Kohen shabal sveik zaina. If a kohen has relations with a woman that it's doubtful if she is a zaina. Kohen, for example, sveik giyeris or mishacheres. We're not sure if she's a giyeris or mishacheres. Or shabal sveik grusha, or he had relations with a woman, we're not sure if she's a grusha. And v'chein kohen gadol shebas svek almana, a kohen gadol had a relation with a woman, we're not sure if she was a widow. Harez v'svek chalala. So here, the woman is doubtfully chalala, because we don't know if this was an Isser Kahuna relationship. Uvlod v'svek chal, and therefore her child is also going to be a suffix if he's a chal. So said Rambam Malacha Yud Nimtzu Chalal Mishleish. It comes out there's three categories of chalal. You have chalal min Torah, you have a biblical chalal, which is for that of a biblical Isser of Kahuna. You have a chalal min Devreim, you have rabbinic chalal, which we said, like for example, in the previous halacha, a kohen has a relation with a chalutza. Usvei chal, and like we just described, when there's a suffix, if there's a halach of chalal. Now, b'chol svei chal, says the Rambam, any doubtful chal, noitzun of chumri kahan v'chumri Yisrael. We actually have to give the stringencies of the status of kahanim and that of Yisrael. Meaning, eino yichel b'truma. So, you cannot eat from truma because maybe he's a definite chal, which is forbidden to eat truma, because a chal, like the Rambam says, truma is like a zar for all halachas. Now, v'lemetam al-mesim. Now, however, he cannot make himself tummy to dead people because maybe he is not a chol, maybe he's a valid kohen, which is forbidden to become tummy. And but Nesi Isha really kohen, he has to marry only a woman that's fit for a kohen because maybe he's not a chol. And vim achol, but if he eats truma, or nitmo, if he becomes tummy, or nasa gusha marries a gusha, so makanais and makas mardas. He's only going to get rabbinic lashes, not biblical, because you can't give lashes out of doubt. And regarding a halacha of a doubtful deraisa, we give rabbinic lashes, which is not any less than a regular rabbinical violation, which you give rabbinic lashes. And the same thing applies to the rabbinic chal, which we place the stringencies of kahuna and that of Yisrael. Now, not regarding malchus, if let's say becomes tummy to mesim or he has relations with women that are forbidden to a kohen, we actually give him biblical lashes because since biblically he's actually a kosher kohen, it's only rabbinically chal. There we actually would give the biblical lash. But regarding the other halachas, we say it has the same stringencies as kahuna and Yisrael. But regarding the first category of definitive biblical chol, that we treat like a non-kohen. He can marry a divorcee, he could make himself tummy to dead people. Like it says in the pasuk in the Yikra, tell it to the Kahan, the sons of Aaron. What does that mean to say? Even though they're sons of Aaron, which this chalal is, but it has to be in his kahanic status, which he doesn't have because he's a chal, and if he doesn't have those halachas in Parashat Emor of not becoming Tamil Mesim and so on, and all those halachas. Now, the Rambam continues now regarding the kohenes and giyoris, which we were speaking about the prohibitions of a kohen marry halala. So says the Rambam, kohen zachar, a male kohen shu also lisa zayna b'chalala. Yeah, he's forbidden to marry a zayna halala, as we mentioned in this parak and the previous parak. So too is forbidden to a female convert and a female maidservant that was freed. Sheika zayna because she's like a zayna kamishran, like we explained in parak Yiches halacha yud gimel that we give halacha gimel that we give these women the same status as a zayna. Now, aval kehenes muteres linasir lachol v'legir v'meshukar, but the other way around, a female kohen, a kohenes, a daughter of a kohen, is permitted to marry lachol to a chal, v'legir to a convert, a meshukar, and to a male servant that was freed. Why? Says the Rambam, because the kosher women, those that have unflawed lineage, they're not problematic in marrying those that are invalid. Remember, because the pasuk, when it talks about this obligation of a kohen to stay pure, to stay kosher, not to marry these types of women, it says b'nei Aaron, the sons of Aaron, these halachas not apply to the daughters of Aaron. Nimtza hager mutter lisa mamzeres. Well, it comes interestingly that a ger is permitted to marry with a mamzeres because he's not considered in the kahal of Hashem is allowed to marry a mamzeres. So that's one extreme. And but lisa is to marry Candace, which is the other extreme. Mamzeres because he's not considered kahal Hashem, which although mamzeres is not allowed to marry a regular Jewish man, but a ger is permitted. And also Kehanis, who does not have the problem of marrying psulim, could also be marrying the same ger. Halach yid beis. Ger mushucharorim, converts and freed servants, that they married each other and they had a daughter. Even if it's after many generations, but since they're marrying in their own convert or freed slave status and they never had the seed of the Jewish people mixed in with them, so that daughter, even though their family has been Jewish for many generations, the daughter is forbidden to marry a kohen. But if she got married, she does not have to leave the marriage. Ultimately, she's a regular Bas Yisrael. Her conception and her birth was in a state of sanctity. But if a ger or a freed servant marries a Jewish woman, or a regular Yisrael marries a gersa mishacheres, so now already Zeri Yisrael has been introduced to this family of converts, then then even initially it's permitted for that daughter to marry to the kahuna, because again you have the Zeri Yisrael mixed in, whether it be paternally or maternally. Halach Yud Gimel. Ger Amoni Shenasa Bas Yisrael. If a Amoni ger marries a Jewish woman, or a second generation Mitzri convert marries a Jewish woman, although that relationship, that marriage was in sin, and therefore subsequently the women who, when they have relationships with a forbidden man, if it's a global Isser, makes them into Zionist, like we explained in Perkei Ches Halacha Gimel, and here it's in sin because you have to be a third generation Mitzri to marry in, and the ger money is never permitted. But the daughters are going to be even initially permitted to marry to the guna, again, like we said, because since there's Zeri Yisrael mixed in over here from the mother, so therefore the daughter is permitted to the kahuna l'ketchila. Now, Ram continues regarding general concepts of yichus, of lineage regarding a child by kosher families. As Ram says, in Halach Yadal, Chol Shanasik Shera, if a Chol marries a regular kosher Jewish woman, Zara Min Chalalim, the children that she has from her are going to be halal. V'chein ben benoi, so to his great grandson, his sons, v'afala achar elav dar, and even after 1,000 generations. The reason is ben hachal zacher hu chal lo'ilam. The son of a male chal is going to be forever a chal. So his father and his father, so his son, keeps on going, are going to be halal. Now v'moisa bas, and if he had a daughter, Asur hilakun, she's been married to a kohen, shari chalal, because she is a chalal. It's one of the types of chalal that we said. It's either the woman herself having a relation with a Isur kuna, or the daughter of a chal. Now, Av Yisrael shenas chalala, but if Yisrael marries a chalala, havlod kasher, the child is kosher. Lefikach meizabas, therefore, meaning it does not become a chal because the father is not his Yisrael. Lefikach meizabas, therefore, if there was a daughter, here's another case where even initially the daughter could go ahead and marry the kohen l'ketchila. Halacha Tezvav. Kahanim, Levim, Yisrael. Those three types of sects of the Jewish people, they're permitted to marry, intermarry. And the child goes after the male, meaning if the father is a kohen, the child's a kohen, the father's a Levi, the child's a Levi. And Levim, Yisrael, Chalalim, a Levi, Yisrael, and Chalalim are permitted to intermarry. In contrast, like we said, to a kohen is not allowed to marry Chalala, but Levim, Yisrael are permitted to. And here too, the child goes after the father. Shlomo says in the Pasuk Midbar, that they're born on their families according to their paternal houses, which is based of him mishpachtli. The father's paternity, that father's household is his family. And the mother's family is not considered his family. He goes based on the father. Halach Zayin. Levim Yisraelim Chalalim. As we said, Levim, Yisraelim, and Chalalim. Gerim Bavadim Shachrarim, converts and freed slaves. They're all permitted to intermarry. Again, Kahanim would have problems, but Levim Yisraelim don't have that. And the Ger V'Meshukrar, and if you have a convert and a freed slave, Shenos Levi Yisrael is a Chalala, they married the daughter of a Levi, or of a Yisrael, or a Chalala, Har ben Yisraeli. So the child is a regular Yisrael. Again, the father is not the Levi, it's the mother who's the Levi. Again, it doesn't go based on the mother, the child's going to be a Yisrael. Now, if Yisraeli or Levi or Chol Shanasug Yersim Shachreres, but if a Yisrael or a Levi or Chol marries, which he's from a Kohanim, then if he marries a Yersim Shachreres, here the child is going to go after the father, and therefore will be respectively either a Chol, Kohen, or a Levi, or a Yisrael. Now, Allah Chizan Ram continues regarding the presumptive state of validity of a family. Says Rambam, "Kol mishpachos becheskes kashrus." All families have a presumption of validity, of being kosher. Therefore, initially, one is permitted to go ahead and marry from any family initially. Now, Vava became even so. If you see two families constantly quarreling, or you see one family that constantly is a quarrelsome, contentious family. Or you see one person, a certain individual, that is constantly having fights with everyone. He's very has a lot of azus and arrogance and chutzpah and audacity and brazenness. So you're concerned for those individuals, families. It's appropriate to distance yourself from them. Because these are signs of invalidity, of disqualification. And so to someone that's always disqualifying others. For example, or he always finds flaws and problems with families or individuals. He says regarding them that they're illegitimate. You're concerned for him, the one who's saying the rumors about others, then maybe he's a mamzer. They're saying about a certain people or family that they're slaves. We're concerned actually that he's a slave. And the reason is what's called shakala paisel, because whoever disqualifies b'muma paisel, he finds the flaws in others, what actually isn't himself. So if he's saying this about others, we have to be concerned that it's actually, he's projecting onto others what he really has by himself. So any person that has a certain brazenness or a non-shamefacedness or a certain cruelty, and he hates people, but he doesn't do kindness to them, we're more concerned that he's from the Gevainim, which are people that got mixed in to the Jewish people, which they were really tricked their way in, but they're not really because the signs of a Jew from the holy nation, they're baishanim, they're shamefaced, rachmanim, they're compassionate, they do acts of kindness. But the Gevainim it says, the pasuk in Shmuel Beis, the Gevainim are not from the Jewish people. What does that mean? Although they, so to speak, joined, because they are brazen, and they were not appeased. Meaning, as we find in history, they did not have mercy on the sons of Shaul. They didn't do kindness to the Jewish people to forgive the sons of their king of Shaul. Although the Jewish people had done kindness to them and sustained them initially, they didn't have that appreciation, and they were stubborn in their cruelty in saying, no, we want to have them, that they should be hung. And because of that, one should be concerned if one sees these characteristics in a certain person or family, that they're from the Gevainim, and therefore to stay away from them. Halacha Yudches. Now, if there's a family that there's some rumors about them, and about a flaw about them, and moreover, you have two people that are testifying that there's either a mamzer or a chol that was mixed into this family, or that there's an element of slavery over here. Here the Rambam doesn't say oy eved, as he says mamzer chol oy eved. The reason is because an eved, if it would get mixed into a Yisrael, in other words, if he would have relations with a Bas Yisrael, the child actually would be kasher, as the Rambam said in practice of Halacha Gimel. So, and that would even be kasher for Kuna according to the Rambam. So therefore the Rambam writes, Oishesh behem avdus. In other words, what it means to say is that what people are saying is that in this family there are slaves and maidservants, and the child that's born in this family is a suffix of an eved because maybe he was born from a shivcha, not from an eved, and hence harez is a suffix. So this family would have a doubt regarding if there is this element of mamzerus or chol or avdus. Now, the imishpachas kahanim, and if this family that we have a doubt regarding is a family of kahanim, le'yisam mena isha. So a man should not marry from her, from that family, a woman, which regarding a kohen, really the primary that we do is we're checking for chalalas, and because the chalalas required also a bedika because mamzeres, which again for a kohen the concern is chalalas. If there's a concern regarding mamzeres or abdus, so that would be a regular Yisrael would have that concern. So depending on which one it is, that would be this concern not to marry a woman, the kohen because of chalalas, a Yisrael because of mamzeres and abdus. So you shouldn't marry from it a woman until they first inspect 4 of her mothers, change money, which is really 8. In other words, them and their mothers. And the reason is because of 4 that we check the other ones, which you can't really check these 4 unless you really check the ones on top of them. So it's really, we want to check 4, but because of that we got to check 8. As Rambam explains, Ima, her mother, Ve'im Ima, her mother's mother, Ve'im Avi Ima, and the mother of her mother's father, meaning her paternal her paternal grandmother, so meaning it's her mother's father's mother, the aim avi ima, and her mother's father's mother's mother, and the so that was really primarily on the mother's side. Then you also have to check her father's mother, the aim avia, and her father's grandmother, mother's mother, the aim avi aviha, and her father's 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 mother, the Ema, the Avia, and her father's mother's mother. Those are the 8 women that has to be checked to make sure that we don't find any psul because of the rumor and of the 2 witnesses that had said that there's some type of suffix over here married in. So therefore, that would be the verification process. Halachia test. Now, if this family was not that of a family of Canaan, this that there's some type of suffix here is a family of Leviim or Yisraelim, where here the concern would be that of Psulikal and not of Chalolis, obviously, because we're talking about a family of Yisraelim where there's no problem about Chalolis. That would be only a family of Kuhuna. So here, Moisav Livdik Lem Zug Echad. Here you have to check one more peer. In other words, you have to check her mother's mother and her father's mother's mother. You got to do one more. In this case, it's going to come out not 8, but you're going to be checking 10 of the mothers. Why one more? Because the mixture of non-appropriate elements is more common by the Levim Israel than the Canaan, because Canaan are very strict with yichus. So there's only 8. Here would require another 2. Now, says why are we inspecting only when we're coming to marry a woman in the family, and not when the woman's coming to marry a man? Says the Rambam, because by men, whenever there's a fight between 2 men, they disgrace his friend in some type of disqualification that he has in his yichus, in his lineage. If there really would be some disqualification, but would have been heard. People find this out when you want to go ahead and bashmut someone else, you would find it. So therefore, you don't have to be concerned when the woman's trying to marry a man from their family. If you didn't hear anything, you don't have to be concerned. But by women, they don't embarrass by yichus. They do it some other ways, and therefore you don't really know until you do the inspection of the 8 or the 10 mothers. Now, halacha vav says Rambam, give the ish. Now, why is it that the man has to check when he wants to marry from this family, which there's a flaw regarding its presumption, and that you don't have to check a woman that's getting married to them, where that's the same thing, where we know this family has some type of a flaw. So why does not the woman have to check with that's getting married to them? Because the kasheris, the women that are kosher, were not prescripted regarding marrying those that are puzzle. And since the Torah was not particular about yichusi kuna, so they didn't make the added stringency either of checking for psul mamzeris either, and therefore the woman's allowed to marry those men, even though it's from a family of suspicion, without doing this bedika. Now, halacha of Beis related to the Ram, kol currently ma'amzer b'shaisik. And when they call him out, I call him a mamzer, and he's silent. I nasin b'shaisik, call him a nasin, which also has this problematic element of marriage. And b'shaisik is quiet. I chal b'shaisik, call him a chal, and he's quiet. I ever b'shaisik, call him a and he's quiet. So chayshel mishpach, if you're concerned for him and for his family, you can't marry from them. And we can't bite unless you check like we explained, to make sure that it's not true, because shtika kaidav is silent. It sounds like he's admitting to that claim. Halach of Gimel. Mishpacha is arba sfeik chal, a family that got mixed in to the family a doubtful chal. I mean, there was an individual, not clear as a chal, now is somehow mixed into this family. So kal amana ma'isa mishpachas, any widow from this family, means to say that if a regular woman that got married to an individual from that family and was widowed, that widow is initially forbidden to a kain, so we have to be concerned, did she become a chalala? But then this is, if she did get married, like she doesn't have to leave, and they should stay sveikas, which tells us why, like at Chila we're machmer, because by yichusin we're machmer, even by sveika, but that's why we're makel b'di'evid, because of it's only a sveika, it's a double doubt. What's a double doubt? Maybe she's the widow of that chal. Again, we didn't know who is this that got mixed into the family. And if she is his widow, she did become forbidden having relations with him, like the Rambam said in Perkut Ches. Maybe she's not the widow of that one. We don't know which man it is. Now, and even if we say that she's the widow of that man that got mixed in, maybe he's the chal, maybe he's not. We said he's a separate chal. So therefore, since it's fake sveika, again, initially not, but the Eved, yes. Now, let's say we know there's a definite chal that got mixed into this family. We just don't know who he is. Every woman from them is forbidden to a kohen until we do a bedika, until we inspect her. Then this is him, she gets married, then Teitze, again, she has to leave because you have a suffix deraisa here, l'chumra, that this woman might be halal. And v'uadin im nisar basveik mamza mamza bad, the same thing would apply, the same application. In other words, what we said that regarding the suffix, if she gets married, she doesn't have to leave. But by the definite, if she did, she has to leave. The same thing is regarding everyone else, regarding if there's an element of a suffix of mamzeris, or the contrast would be a definite mamzer. She'esh is mamzer, ve'esh is chol. It says the Ram, the wife of a mamzer, or the wife of a chol, which is a kahuna, is echad, it's the same Issurei, like we explained in Perek Yud Ches Halach Aleph, where the same thing would apply for Yisrael as applies for Kohen, where again, if it's a suffix, okay, so then it would be a svek sveka, then in this is like teitze, but it would be definite, where you have the eish is mamzer, which is going to be forbidden, is going to have this same halacha of, if it was a suffix, it would be mutter, b'diavad, and this is like teitze, but if it's definite, would be that it would have to be teitze.